Hello everyone, this is your instructor in income taxation, and still, our topic for today is fundamental principles of taxation. This is the fifth part of fundamental principles of taxation, so without further ado, let's start. Let's begin with the Situs of taxation or Situs of taxation. When we say Situs of taxation, it simply means the place of taxation. It is the tax jurisdiction that has the power to levy taxes upon the tax object. So bakit sobrang importante na malaman ang Situs of taxation? Ang pwede lang na i-tax ng isang estado, ng isang state, ng isang bansa ay ang kanyang nasasakupan. At para matax ang isang subject or object, kinakailangan na magkaroon ito ng Situs of taxation ng place of taxation. So napaka-importante itong Situs of taxation para malaman kung taxable ba yung object of taxation dito sa Pilipinas o hindi. Now, there are factors to consider in determining the Situs of taxation. Paano daw ba masasabi na yung isang bagay, yung isang subject, yung isang object ay mayroong Situs of taxation? So, these are the factors na i-consider natin para malaman yung Situs of taxation. First, subject matter. Ibig sabihin, sino ba at ano ba yung tinatax? Persons ba yan? Property ba yan? Activity ba yan? Yun yung sinasabing subject matter. Second, nature of the tax. Anong klase ng tax yung pinapataw? Income tax ba yan? Property tax ba yan? Personal tax ba yan? Business tax ba yan? Etc. Next, third, the citizenship of the taxpayer. Filipino ba yung taxpayer o hindi? Yan yung sinasabing citizenship of the taxpayer. Next, fourth, residence of the taxpayer. Meaning to say, saan ba namamalagi yung taxpayer? Saan ba siya naninirahan? For example, yung taxpayer ay Filipino, at naninirahan yung Filipino na yon sa Pilipinas. So, anong residence ng taxpayer? Of course, Pilipinas. Kung sakali naman na yung taxpayer ay Korean at naninirahan siya dito sa Pilipinas, ano ang residence niya? Of course, Pilipinas. Kasi sa Pilipinas siya nakatira. Next, source of income. Saan ba galing yung income ng taxpayer? Sa employment ba? Sa business ba? Sa pagbenta ba ng goods? Sa pagrender ba ng service? Etc. And lastly, place of excise, business, or occupation being taxed. So, kino-consider din kung saan in-exercise or in-exercise ang right at privilege at kung saan kinakonduct yung business at occupation. So those are the factors that we need to consider in determining the Situs of taxation. In order for you to have a deeper understanding on the Situs of taxation, I will give examples. First, business tax Situs. Businesses are taxable in the place where the business is conducted. Sa madaling salita, taxable ang business sa place of the business or kung saan kinakonduct yung business. Let's say, a taxpayer is engaged in restaurant operation in the Philippines and a car dealership abroad. So yung taxpayer, may dalawa siyang business. Dalawa ang kanyang business. Restaurant business and car dealing business, or simply car dealership. Yung restaurant business ay taxable sa Pilipinas kasi yung restaurant business ay kinakonduct dito sa Pilipinas. However, yung car dealing business ay exempt o hindi taxable dito sa Pilipinas kasi kinakonduct yung business sa ibang bansa. That is business tax situs. Businesses are taxable in the place where the business is conducted. Next example, property tax situs. Properties are taxable in their location. So in short, location of the property. Meaning to say, kung saan yung location ng property, dun siya itatax. Let's say, an OFW has a residential lot in the Philippines. Although, yung OFW ay nasa ibang bansa, wala siya sa Pilipinas, at nagtatrabaho siya sa ibang bansa, nandito sa Pilipinas yung property niya. At dahil nandito sa Pilipinas yung property niya, taxable yung property niya dito sa Pilipinas. Accordingly, magbabayad siya ng real property tax dito sa Pilipinas because the taxpayer's property is located in the Philippines. So that is the property tax situs. Properties are taxable in their location. Next, personal tax situs. Persons are taxable in their place of residence. In short, residence of the taxpayer. Kung yung taxpayer naninirahan dito sa Pilipinas, then taxable siya dito sa Pilipinas. Magbabayad siya ng personal tax dito sa Pilipinas. Let's say, a Korean student is studying engineering in the Philippines. Although Korean siya at hindi siya Filipino citizen, siya ay naninirahan dito sa Pilipinas. Therefore, magbabayad siya ng personal tax dito sa Pilipinas. That is the meaning of personal tax situs, in which persons are taxable in their place of residence. Next example, income tax situs on services. Service fees are taxable in the place where they are rendered. Kung saan ni-render yung service, doon taxable yung service fees or service revenue or service income. Let's say, a foreign corporation leases a residential space to a non-resident Filipino citizen abroad. So yung foreign corporation, nagpaparenta siya ng residential space sa non-resident Filipino citizen abroad. When we say non-resident Filipino citizen, he or she is a Filipino, but he or she is not residing in the Philippines. Dahil nagpaparenta yung foreign corporation abroad, then doon nire-render ng foreign corporation yung leasing service. Accordingly, yung rent income or yung rental income ay hindi taxable dito sa Pilipinas since nire-render yung leasing service abroad. How about the income tax situs on sale of goods? The gain on sale is taxable in the place of sale. So, paano ba nagkakaroon ng gain on sale? Nagkakaroon ng gain on sale kapag mas mataas yung selling price ng goods kaysa sa cost. Now, yung gain on sale ay taxable in the place of sale. Let's say, as an illustration, while in Thailand, a non-resident OFW citizen agreed with a Thai friend to sell his diamond necklace to the latter or to the Thai friend. They stipulated that the delivery of the item and the payment will be made a week later in the Philippines. The sale was consummated as agreed. Ang tanong, saan taxable yung gain on sale of the diamond necklace? Sa Thailand ba o sa Pilipinas? Take note na ang contract of sale is a consensual contract and is perfected by the meeting of minds of the contracting parties. Ang contract of sale ay consensual, meaning to say, perfected ang contract of sale kapag mayroon ng consent ang mga parties na involved. Kapag may meeting of the minds na yung mga parties, kapag meron ng agreement ang mga parties na involved. Since yung agreement nila ay nangyari sa Thailand, then perfected yung contract of sale sa Thailand. Therefore, yung situs of taxation ay Thailand at hindi Pilipinas. Accordingly, yung gain on sale ng diamond necklace ay hindi taxable dito sa Pilipinas, kundi doon sa Thailand. That is the income tax situs on sale of goods. The gain on sale is taxable in the place of sale. Let's now proceed to the double taxation. When we say double taxation, this occurs when the same taxpayer is taxed twice by the same tax jurisdiction for the same thing. Meaning to say, kaya tinawag na double taxation kasi dalawang beses tinaksan yung taxpayer ng parehong tax jurisdiction. Take note, para masabi na merong double taxation, dapat pareho yung thing or object na tinataksan. Let's say, may property ka at meron kang income. Yung property mo, papatawan ng property tax, yung income mo, papatawan ng income tax. Hindi yan double taxation kasi nga hindi pareho yung object na tinataksan. Yung isa ay property at yung pangalawa ay income. May iba't ibang elements ang double taxation. Yung una ay primary element at yung pangalawa ay secondary elements. Ang primary element ng double taxation ay same object. So dapat pareho yung object na tinataksan. Dapat hindi yan mawala kasi primary element yan. Hindi pwedeng tawagin na double taxation kapag hindi pareho yung object na tinataksan. Yung mga secondary elements naman ng double taxation ay same type of tax, same purpose of tax, same taxing jurisdiction, and same tax period. So those are the different elements of double taxation. There are also different types of double taxation. The first type is called direct double taxation, and the second type is called indirect double taxation. Direct double taxation occurs when all the elements of double taxation exist for both impositions. Meaning to say, for both impositions, present lahat ng elements ng double taxation, namely, same object, same type of tax, same purpose of tax, same taxing jurisdiction, and same tax period. For example, an income tax of 10% on monthly sales and a 2% income tax on the annual sales, which is a total of monthly sales. For both impositions, pareho yung object, which is sales. Parehong pinatawan yung sales. Aside from that, pareho din yung type of tax at yon ay income tax. Moreover, pareho din yung purpose of tax which is to raise revenue for the government. Recall na ang income tax ay revenue tax. So it is imposed only for the general purpose of the government, and that is to raise revenue for the government. Furthermore, pareho din yung taxing jurisdiction. Bakit? Kasi yung income tax ay national tax. Ini-impose yan ng national government. So here in our example, both income taxes are imposed by the national government. Pareho din ng taxing period. Pareho yung taon, same year. Yung annual sales kasi ay yung total ng lahat ng monthly sales. Pinatawan na yung monthly sales, pinatawan pa yung annual sales. On the other hand, indirect double taxation occurs when at least one of the secondary elements of double taxation is not common for both impositions. Ang sabi, at least one of the secondary elements ang hindi common for both impositions. So, maaring hindi pareho yung type of tax, maaring hindi pareho yung purpose of tax, maaring hindi pareho yung taxing jurisdiction, at maaring hindi pareho yung taxing period. For example, the national government levies business tax on the sales or gross receipts of business, while the local government levies business tax upon the same sales or receipts. So ano yung secondary element na hindi common for both impositions? Yung taxing jurisdiction. Yung unang business tax, inimpose ng national government. Yung pangalawang business tax, inimpose ng local government. Next example, the national government collects income tax from a taxpayer on his income, while the local government collects community tax upon the same income. So ano-ano yung mga secondary elements na hindi common for both impositions? First, yung taxing jurisdiction. National government yung isa, local government yung pangalawa. Second, yung type of tax. Yung isa, income tax. Yung pangalawa, community tax. Next, the Philippine government taxes foreign income of domestic corporations and resident citizens, while a foreign government also taxes the same income. In this example, taxing jurisdiction ang hindi common for both impositions. Yung isa, Philippine government, at yung pangalawa, foreign government. Ang tawag dito ay international double taxation kasi involved na yung other countries. Take note that nothing in our law expressly prohibits double taxation. Actually, indirect double taxation is prevalent in practice. Unlike the United States Constitution, our Constitution does not expressly prohibit direct double taxation. However, hindi pinapaboran itong direct double taxation kasi oppressive or burdensome itong direct double taxation sa mga taxpayers. So whenever possible, direct double taxation should be avoided and prevented. Let's now proceed to the escapes from taxation. When we say escapes from taxation, these are the means available to the taxpayer to limit or even avoid the impact of taxation. In other words, these are the means of avoiding or minimizing the burden of taxation. Actually, there are two categories of escapes from taxation. First, those that result to loss of government revenue, and second, those that do not result to loss of government revenue. So let's begin with the first category. Those that result to loss of government revenue. Ibig sabihin, yung mga babanggitin kong escapes from taxation dito, nire-reduce nila yung revenue ng government. One escape from taxation under this category is the tax evasion. I'm sure narinig nyo na itong term na tax evasion. This is also known as tax dodging. Tax evasion simply refers to any act or trick that tends to illegally reduce or avoid the payment of tax. Meaning to say, Yung mga ginagawa ng taxpayer para ma-reduce yung tax na babayaran niya ay illegal, labag sa batas. So ano ba yung mga instances na kung saan nagkakaroon ng tax evasion? In income taxation, this can be perpetrated by undue understatement of income, overstatement of expenses, or non-declaration of income. So, ang una ay yung undue understatement of income. So, minamanipulate ng taxpayer yung kanyang income. Sinasadya niyang i-reduce yung kanyang income para mabawasan yung babayaran niyang tax. That is undue understatement of income. Let's say na ang income talaga niya ay 1 million pesos. Tapos minamanipulate niya, naging 800,000 pesos na lang. Next, undue overstatement of expenses. Dito naman, sinasadyang dagdagan ng taxpayer ang kanyang expenses. Kasi ang effect, kapag overstated ang expenses, babawasan or mababawasan yung net income ng taxpayer. Understated ang net income ng taxpayer. So, mababawasan yung net income if ever overstated ang expenses. Yung non-declaration of income naman, hindi dinedeclare ng taxpayer lahat ng kanyang income. Let's say, nagbebenta siya ng goods. Of course, may sales revenue siya. Ang ginagawa ng taxpayer, hindi niya nire-record at hindi niya nilalagay lahat ng sales revenue niya para ma-reduce yung babayaran niyang tax. So all of this, undue understatement of income, overstatement of expenses, and non-declaration of income, all of these are illegal. The second escape from taxation under this category is tax avoidance. This is otherwise known as tax minimization. When we say tax avoidance, this simply refers to any act or trick that reduces or totally escapes taxes by any legally permissible means. Ibig sabihin, yung mga ginagawa ng taxpayer para maka-escape sa tax or ma-reduce yung tax na babayaran niya ay legal. So, hindi labag sa batas. Tax avoidance may be done by selecting tax options allowed by law which minimizes tax liability or by careful tax planning to reduce tax exposure. In other words, pinag-aaralan nilang mabuti yung tax laws at hahanap sila ng option na kung saan makakatipid sila sa babayaran nilang tax. Of course, the taxpayer can do this with the help of their accountants and lawyers or even themselves kung meron talaga silang sufficient knowledge when it comes to taxation. Next, third, tax exemption. Tax exemption is also known as tax holiday. So when we say tax exemption, this simply refers to the immunity, privilege, or freedom from being subject to a tax which others are subject to. So kapag sinabing tax exempt ka, ibig sabihin, hindi ka papatawan ng tax. Wala kang babayaran na tax. For example, ikaw ay minimum wage earner. Dahil minimum wage yung kinikita mo or dahil minimum wage lang yung kinikita mo, ang sabi sa batas, tax exempt yung income mo. Therefore, wala kang babayaran na income tax. Tax exemptions may be granted by the Constitution, law, or contract. Ang tanong, pwede bang i-revoke ng Congress yung tax exemption? The answer is yes. Actually, all forms of tax exemptions can be revoked by Congress. However, merong exception. Hindi nila pwedeng i-revoke yung tax exemption na grinant ng Constitution at contracts. Itong tax exemption, nire-reduce niya yung government revenue kasi if ever yung taxpayers ay hindi tax-exempt, then makakakolekta pa ang gobyerno ng tax sa kanila. Pero dahil tax-exempt yung taxpayers, then wala silang makokolekta from those taxpayers. Yan yung sinasabing tax exemption. It is the immunity, privilege, or freedom from being subject to a tax which others are subject to. Let's now proceed to the next category of escapes from taxation. Those that do not result to loss of government revenue. So yung mga babanggitin ko dito ay yung mga escapes from taxation na hindi nakakabawas sa revenue ng government. The first escape from taxation under this category is called shifting. When we say shifting, this is the process of transferring tax burden to other tax payers. Ako dapat yung magbabayad ng tax, pero yung burden ipinasa ko sa iba. May mga tax kasi na pwedeng ipasa by nature. Recall, yung indirect tax na diniscuss ko in our previous lesson, that tax can be shifted to another tax payer. Shifting is common with business taxes, where taxes imposed on business revenue can be shifted or passed on to customers. Halimbawa ay yung VAT or Value Added Tax. Let's say, ako dapat yung magbabayad ng business tax, pero ipinasa ko yon sa kasunod, doon sa aking customers. Kasi ang idea is kung sino ang huling consumer ng item, siya yung totoo na magbabayad ng tax. Kaya tignan nyo, kapag bumili kayo sa grocery stores, may makikita kayong VAT sa resibo. Take note na yung indirect taxes lang ang pwedeng i-shift. Hindi pwedeng i-shift yung direct taxes. Next, capitalization. When we say capitalization, this pertains to the adjustment of the value of an asset caused by changes in tax rates. Meaning to say, kung magbabago yung tax rates, magbabago din yung value ng asset. For instance, the value of a mining property will correspondingly decrease when mining output is subjected to higher taxes. So because of the higher taxes on the mining output, nag-adjust yung value ng mining property. Nag-decrease yung value ng mining property. Next, transformation. When we say transformation, this pertains to the elimination of wastes or losses by the taxpayer to form savings to compensate for the tax imposition or increase in taxes. Ito yung escape from taxation na ginagawa ng producers or manufacturers. This is used by producers or manufacturers. These producers or manufacturers are improving their process of production para mabawasan yung waste, loss, damaged items, or defective products. Kasi yung waste, damaged items, at defective products, they are not saleable. Hindi na sila mabibenta. Actually, hindi naman naiiwasan na merong waste, damaged items, or defective products. Meron at meron pa rin yan. But if the producers or manufacturers improve their process of production, nababawasan yung waste, loss, damage, and defects. And as a result, makaka-form sila ng savings at yung savings na yon ay gagamitin nila for a tax imposition or gagamitin nila yon if ever tumaas yung taxes. So again, the escapes from taxation that do not result to the loss of government revenue are shifting, capitalization, and transformation.